6 days after my divorce became final. My ex-husband married the woman he once told me was everything you stopped being. I found out because his aunt posted 43 wedding photos before breakfast. In one of them, Ethan had his hand around Brooke Whitman's waist, smiling beneath a sycamore tree I had stood under with him only a year earlier. The caption hurt worse than the picture. Some people teach us what we don't want. Others finally show us what home is supposed to feel like. I knew exactly which woman she meant by the first sentence. Me. 9 months earlier, surgery had left a pale scar at the base of my neck. Ethan told me that scar no longer fit the life he was building. Brooke, he said, could walk into any room without making people wonder what had happened to her. She was effortless, perfect, the kind of wife a successful man never had to explain. But when I enlarged one of Brooke's wedding photos, something about the way she lowered her chin when she laughed made my stomach turn cold. I had seen that gesture before, not on Brooke Whitman, on a frightened 20-year-old college student with a completely different face. And before the story was over, I would learn that Brooke wasn't the only person in that wedding photo who had erased the person they used to be. My name is Ava Bennett. I was 29 when my marriage ended. And if there was one thing I thought I understood, it was the difference between something damaged and something worthless. I grew up in a hardware store. Bennett Hardware and Home Supply sat in a red brick building in Columbus, Ohio, where my father had been cutting keys, mixing paint, and arguing with suppliers since before I could read. It wasn't glamorous. We sold screws by the box, furnace filters, garden hoses, paint lumber tools, plumbing parts, and enough miscellaneous pieces of metal to convince a child that adults spent most of their lives fixing things. My parents built the business from one narrow storefront into 2 neighborhood locations. They weren't wealthy. They were comfortable. The store paid the mortgage, employed 12 people, put my younger brother Mason through community college, and gave my parents enough money to take 1 week at Lake Erie every summer. That was success in my family. Useful work. A paid-off truck. Dinner on Sunday. People who showed up when someone needed them. My father had one rule about broken things. Ugly isn't broken, he would say. And broken isn't always finished. I believed him. Ethan used to say he loved that about me. We met when I was 24. He came into Bennett Hardware 10 minutes before closing on a rainy Thursday with a toilet part in a grocery bag. I have no idea what this is called. That makes 2 of us. I looked at my name tag. You work here. I run the website. So I walked into a hardware store and found the one person who doesn't know hardware. My father yelled from aisle 9, "Fill valve." I handed Ethan one. He returned the next afternoon claiming he needed plumber's tape. Dad watched him leave and said his apartment better be underwater. 3 days later, Ethan finally asked me out. I was 6 years older than me and worked in sales for a regional kitchen and bath remodeling company. I was confident in ways I wasn't. He remembered names. He dressed well. He could walk into a room of strangers and leave knowing half of them. I liked that. I seemed to like that I came from somewhere solid. When we married 2 years later, my father cried so hard during our first dance that Mom handed him 3 napkins and told him to pull himself together. For a long time, I used memories like that as evidence. Ethan cried at our wedding. Ethan loved me. Therefore, whatever was happening now had to be temporary. That was one of the biggest mistakes I made. Old evidence cannot always explain present behavior. The first 2 years of marriage were happy. Then Ethan got promoted. Then promoted again. His clients got wealthier. The restaurants got nicer. His suits got sharper. He started talking about presentation. The word appeared everywhere. Presentation mattered when choosing a car. Presentation mattered when choosing a neighborhood. Presentation mattered when choosing where we ate. Eventually, presentation started applying to me. He suggested different dresses, different shoes, different hair, never harshly, not at first. Just small corrections delivered like useful advice. Then I got sick. It began with exhaustion, the kind that made carrying laundry upstairs feel like a negotiation. My doctor found a lump near my thyroid. Most tests looked reassuring. One did not. 3 weeks later, I was lying in a hospital bed while my mother crushed a styrofoam coffee cup between both hands, and my father paced the hallway until a nurse threatened to give him a mop if he needed something to do. The tumor was early. The surgeon removed it completely. No chemotherapy, no radiation, just medication follow-up scans and a scar about 1.5 inches long near my collarbone. When the surgeon said, "We got all of it," I cried harder than I had when she first said the word tumor. Dad looked at the scar after the bandage came off. "Good trade." Mom smacked his arm. "What?" Dad shrugged. "You traded a tumor for a line. I take that deal every time." I laughed. Ethan didn't. At first I barely noticed. One evening we were getting ready for a supplier dinner. I wore a green wrap dress. Ethan was fixing his tie behind me. His eyes stopped on my neck. Then he said, "Are you wearing that?" I looked at myself. "Why?" "There'll be photographers." And he paused. "The navy one might photograph better." The navy dress had a high collar. I understood. I changed. A month later, I found myself buying higher-necked blouses without consciously deciding to. Not because I hated the scar, because I hated watching Ethan look at it. By summer, he came home later. His phone stayed face down. His password changed. He joined a gym 30 minutes away, even though we had one 5 minutes from our house. And one name began appearing in conversation: Brooke Whitman. Brooke's parents owned Whitman Meadow, a converted farm outside Dublin that hosted weddings and corporate dinners. Brooke ran their marketing. She also appeared occasionally on local morning television, talking about wedding trends and home entertaining. Ethan admired her. Brooke knows how to walk into a room. Brooke understands branding. Brooke makes everything look effortless. Effortless. That word followed her everywhere. I met her at a vendor mixer. Brooke was beautiful. There was no point pretending otherwise. Chestnut hair, clear skin, delicate nose, perfectly restrained makeup. She wore cream linen and looked like she had been assembled by someone who understood expensive simplicity. When Ethan introduced us, Brooke's eyes dropped to my scar. Just for a second. Then she smiled. "I've heard so much about you." "That sounds dangerous." "Only good things." Ethan watched her laugh. On the drive home, I asked him directly, "Are you sleeping with her?" His head turned sharply. "What?" "You heard me. This is ridiculous. You talk about her constantly. She's a client. You text her at 11:30 at night. I text dozens of people. Dozens of people wear perfume." His hands tightened on the steering wheel. "You're becoming paranoid." That word silenced me for another month. Not because I believed it, because I wanted to. By November, even my mother noticed. She followed me into the kitchen after Sunday dinner. "Are you happy?" "I'm fine." That wasn't my question. I folded foil over leftover pot roast. "We're going through something." "How bad?" "Normal marriage bad." Mom stared at me. "Your father and I have been married 38 years. There are many types of marriage bad." I almost laughed. Then she touched my wrist. "Fine and happy aren't cousins, Ava." I said nothing. That Christmas, Ethan gave me diamond earrings. I gave him a handmade photo book of our first 5 years together. He flipped through 4 pages. "This is sweet." 2 months later, I found it under unopened mail in his home office. Our 4th anniversary fell on a Thursday in February. I took the afternoon off. I bought thick steaks, rosemary potatoes, green beans, Cabernet tulips, and a small chocolate cake from the bakery that had made our wedding cake. My mother called while I was setting the table. "You sound cheerful." "I'm making anniversary dinner." There was a pause. "I hope he deserves it." "Mom." I said nothing. "You said plenty. I love you." "I love you too." At 6:12, Ethan texted, "Running behind, don't wait." I stared at the table, then typed, "It's our anniversary." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Then, I know. At 7:30, I ate half a potato. At 8, I poured wine. At 9, I called. Voicemail. At 10:40, headlights crossed our living room wall. Ethan came inside wearing a charcoal coat. He stopped when he saw the table. Not with guilt, with annoyance. "Ava." That tone told me everything before he said another word. I was holding a brown envelope. "I need to talk to you." Apparently. He looked at the dinner. "You shouldn't have done all this. It's our anniversary." "I know what day it is." He placed the envelope beside my untouched plate. Inside were divorce papers. Nothing complicated, nothing theatrical. Just proof that my husband had already been planning the end of our marriage while I stood in a grocery store choosing tulips. I read the first page, then looked up. "How long?" "Ava, how long?" I knew what I meant. "Since summer." "Brooke." His silence answered. I laughed once. It was either that or scream. Brooke, it wasn't supposed to happen this way. How was it supposed to happen? I was going to talk to you. When? I'm talking to you now. On our anniversary. I didn't know you were planning this dinner. I stared at him. That sentence stayed with me, as though I had failed to schedule my hope around his betrayal. Why, I asked. We haven't been right in a long time. Why? We want different things. What do you want? He rubbed his thumb over his wedding ring. Then his eyes moved to my neck. There it was again. I touched the scar. It isn't just that. Then say the rest. Ava. Say it. I exhaled. The scar bothers me. My entire body went still. How? I don't know. You do. He looked frustrated. My career is moving forward. I'm meeting people where image matters. So people notice things. What things? He gestured vaguely toward me. I laughed. Be brave, Ethan. His jaw tightened. Brooke walks into a room and nobody wonders what happened to her. That hurt. Exactly as he intended. I looked at him for several seconds. My surgery saved my life. I understand that. No, you understand the words. You're turning this into something uglier than it is. I'm trying to understand how much uglier it actually is. His voice sharpened. Brooke understands what this life requires. What does that mean? She takes care of herself. I flinched. I saw it. Kept going. She knows how to represent herself. She doesn't enter every room carrying a story people have to feel sorry about. I stared at him. I have never asked anyone to feel sorry for me. You don't have to, they see it. He pointed toward my scar. Something inside me finally broke cleanly instead of painfully. You think survival is embarrassing. I didn't say that. You just did. You grew up fixing broken things. You know, sometimes you repair something and it still never looks the same. He had spent years listening to my father talk about repair, and now he had turned that language into a weapon. I stood. My father taught me something else. Ethan waited. He taught me not to confuse cosmetic damage with failure. His mouth tightened. And Brooke, I asked, what about her? She fits. Yes, perfectly. His answer came instantly. Yes, I nodded. Then I hope perfection keeps you warm tonight. What? You're not sleeping here. Ava, there's an overnight bag in the back seat of your SUV. I froze. I had seen it through the window. Black duffel, already packed. He had expected to leave. He just hadn't expected dinner. 20 minutes later, Ethan came downstairs carrying more clothes. At the door, he turned. I didn't want to hurt you. I almost admired the audacity. You just told your wife that the scar from a surgery that saved her life makes her unsuitable for your future. I looked away. Stop telling yourself you didn't want to hurt me. Then I added, and when this stops feeling romantic with Brooke, don't rewrite me as the reason you had to do it. His face hardened. Brooke fits the life I'm building. You and I both know you never really did. There it was. The final cut. The one that made me stop wishing he would change his mind. I left. I went into the downstairs bathroom and turned on the bright light. Then I pulled my neckline aside. The scar was pale, thin, healed. I stared at it until I understood something. I had spent almost a year dressing around Ethan's shame. Not mine. His. I made myself one promise. Never again. The next morning, Dad arrived carrying 2 coffees and a toolbox. Mom had called him. I looked at me, then at the toolbox. I brought the wrong thing, didn't I? I laughed so hard I started crying. He put the toolbox down and hugged me. When I told him what Ethan had said, Dad stepped back. You want me to go over there? Where? I'll figure it out. Dad, I'm 62. I can still ruin a man's morning. No. He sighed, then looked at my scar. Remember what I said? Good trade. Still is. That was the first moment I believed losing Ethan might also be a good trade. Our divorce took 5 months. There were forms and meetings and boring practical things. We sold the house. We divided what needed dividing. I'm not going to turn it into a courtroom story because that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was what I found 3 weeks after Ethan left. Our joint savings account was supposed to become a down payment for a larger house. We had saved just over $40,000. $23,000 was gone. Not through one dramatic transfer. Through months of spending. Hotels, restaurants, a jeweler, a weekend lodge near Hocking Hills, a Chicago boutique, charges beginning while I was recovering from surgery. I sat at my parents' kitchen table with the statements in front of me. Mom read them. I took her to Chicago while you were recovering. I nodded. I told us he had a conference. Dad pushed his chair back. What hotel? No. I'm asking a question. And I'm saying no. Mom put a hand on his arm. Then she looked at me. Money gets replaced. I stared at her. But the fact that he spent your shared future financing another life while you were learning whether you were healthy tells you who he was when nobody was watching. That was what stayed with me. Not 23,000. The timing. Ethan had brought soup to my bed. Then taken Brooke away for a weekend. The mediator eventually accounted for the money. That was enough. Some betrayals don't need complicated law. A hotel charge dated 4 days after surgery is plenty. Ethan's relatives made things worse. His Aunt Carol had helped him when he first moved to Ohio and thought of herself as the family diplomat. 3 weeks after Ethan left, she texted, Ava, I hope you'll handle this with grace. Sometimes people grow in different directions. I replied, I was sleeping with someone else while I recovered from surgery. Her answer, I'm not taking sides. Bitterness won't help. 2 months later, Carol accidentally sent me a message intended for someone else. Brooke is much more his speed. She understands what his world requires. Then, sorry, wrong person. I answered, no problem. At least this one was honest. She never replied. Brooke contacted me once. I had texted Ethan that a box of his winter clothes was still in my father's garage. An hour later, Brooke messaged, Hi Ava. Ethan showed me your text. I think communication should stay limited and practical. He's trying to move forward. I replied, My message said there is a box of winter clothes in my father's garage. She responded, Exactly. There's no need for emotional undertones. I laughed. Which word was emotional, winter, or clothes? Several minutes passed. Then she wrote, Ethan needs a partner who can stand beside him without making every room about what she's been through. I hope eventually you can respect that. There it was, a prettier version of Ethan's cruelty. I typed, I respect his decision so much that I'm divorcing him. Then blocked her. The divorce became final on a Monday in August. 6 days later, Ethan married Brooke. Carol posted the photos at 7:04 Sunday morning. 43 of them. Brooke wore ivory. Ethan wore navy. They married beneath the sycamore tree at Whitman Meadow. And Carol wrote, Some people teach us what we don't want. Others finally show us what home is supposed to feel like. Under one photo, she added, Ethan finally looks like himself again. I read that twice. Then I enlarged Brooke's face. Not because I wanted to torture myself. Because I wanted to understand what perfect looked like. There was Brooke laughing with her head lowered slightly and turned away from the camera. Something snagged in my memory. I knew that movement. 2 nights later, Instagram gave me the answer. A message request. Jenna Morales. We had lived in the same dorm at Ohio State and hadn't spoken properly in almost 9 years. Her message read, This is going to sound strange, but is your ex's new wife, Brooke Whitman? Yes. Do you know she used to be Bethany Whitman? I stared. Bethany. Then I remembered. Morrill Tower. 4th floor. Oversized sweatshirts. Thin hair tied back. Severe acne. A rounder face. A young woman who seemed to calculate the cost of being noticed before entering every room. And when she laughed, she lowered her chin. Exactly like Brooke. Jenna called. She looks completely different, I said. She does. What happened? She had work done over the years. A lot. Skin, nose, jaw. I don't know everything. There was no judgment in Jenna's voice. Then she added, She also changed Bethany to Brooke after college. Why? No idea. Jenna hesitated. There was another thing. What? Junior year, she got caught using pieces from other students' design portfolios in a scholarship submission. I vaguely remembered rumors. She left school. She was removed from the program, transferred later. Jenna sent an old dorm photograph. 6 girls. Bethany at the edge. The eyes were Brooke's. The head tilt was Brooke's. Almost nothing else was. I sat looking at the picture for a long time, and I felt something complicated. Not victory. Not even satisfaction. Because having cosmetic surgery wasn't immoral. Changing a name wasn't immoral. Being ashamed of teenage acne wasn't immoral. What bothered me was the hypocrisy. Ethan had told me Brooke walked into rooms without making people wonder what had happened to her. But something had happened to Brooke. A great deal, apparently. She simply had the resources to hide the evidence. I never sent Ethan the photograph. I didn't want my self-worth tied to whether he found his new wife less perfect after seeing an old picture. Then 2 months later, I discovered something that changed the entire story. Several boxes of Ethan's belongings still sat in my parents' garage. Dad finally said he gets one more week or I'm selling his golf clubs. You can't sell them. Watch me. I went through the last box. At the bottom was an old leather portfolio case. Inside were sales certificates, college notes, tax folders, and an envelope addressed to Caleb Harlan. Return address: Ray Harlan, Maysville, Kentucky, Ethan's father. I had met Ray once at our wedding, but Ethan's name was Ethan Cole. I opened the letter. Maybe I shouldn't have. I did. Ray wrote about ordinary things: a compressor at the tire shop, a neighbor's fence, Darlene making too much food on Sundays. Then, your mom still calls you Caleb when she prays. I know you don't like the name anymore. I'm trying to remember Ethan. But you were Caleb in this house for 23 years, son. I stopped. Below that, we are proud you made a life for yourself. You never needed to be ashamed of where you came from. I wish you believed us. I searched the name. Caleb Ray Harlan, Maysville, Kentucky. A dormant Facebook account appeared. The photograph stopped 12 years earlier. And there was Ethan. Except not exactly. I was 21. Heavier. Broader nose. Rounder jaw. Slightly crooked front teeth. Thicker brows. Different haircut. Same eyes. One photograph showed him standing beside Ray and Darlene outside Harlan Tire and Auto. Another showed Caleb at a county fair. Then the account stopped. A year later, public mentions of Ethan Cole began appearing in Columbus. Sales job. Professional headshot. Straight teeth. Sharper jaw. Different nose. Different name. I sat in my father's garage staring at the screen. Dad walked in. What? I showed him the letter. He read it. Then the photo. Well, did you know? No, I never told me. Dad handed the letter back. People can change names. I know. And faces. I know. This isn't about either one. No, it wasn't. It was about Ethan looking at the scar on my neck as though my body had betrayed the future he wanted. Meanwhile, he had spent more than a decade removing every visible reminder of the man he used to be. His accent, his hometown, his parents, his name, his face. And suddenly I understood why my scar bothered him. It wasn't ugly. It was honest. My scar said something had happened to me and I had survived it. Ethan had spent years building a life where nothing was supposed to look as though it had ever been difficult. A week later, Ethan came for the box. I met him in my parents' driveway. I put it into his SUV, then saw Ray's envelope sitting on top. His face changed. Where did you find that? In the box. You read it? Yes. His jaw tightened. You had no right. You left it here. That doesn't make it yours. No. I looked at him. Caleb. His entire body stiffened. Don't call me that. Why? Because it isn't my name. It was. It isn't. Your father seems to have trouble forgetting. His expression hardened. Leave my family out of this. I almost laughed. You told me they were practically strangers. You don't understand. Explain it. There is nothing to explain. You changed your name. So, you changed how you looked. Ava. And you stopped going home. That is none of your business. You're right. I stepped back. But it does explain something. What? I touched my scar. His eyes followed my hand automatically. That. His face closed. Don't start. I wondered for months why this bothered you so much. Our marriage ended for more reasons. Sure. But now I understand. You understand nothing. You hated anything that reminded you people come from somewhere. His expression changed. I continued. You didn't want to change and remain yourself, Ethan. You wanted the old version erased. That is an incredibly simplistic interpretation of a life you know nothing about. I was your wife. His answer came without thinking. You knew what I chose to tell you. Silence. He heard himself. So did I. I nodded. Yes. For the first time, he looked uncertain. I asked one question. Does Brooke know? His shoulders tightened. Know what? That you were Caleb. He pointed at me. Do not contact my wife. I didn't say I would. Stay away from her. You married her 6 days after our divorce. Trust me, Ethan. Distance is the one thing I'm good at now. I drove away. I didn't tell him about Bethany. Winter came. And for a while, my life became wonderfully boring. I bought a small 2-bedroom bungalow 10 minutes from Bennett Hardware. The bathroom tile was ugly. The kitchen cabinets had been painted 3 slightly different whites. I loved them. My name was the only one on the mortgage. Dad replaced 3 hinges I had not asked him to replace. Mom brought curtains. Mason mounted a television crooked and insisted the wall was crooked. Friday nights stopped feeling like proof that nobody wanted me. Sometimes I watched movies. Sometimes I ate dinner with my parents. Sometimes I did absolutely nothing. It felt like wealth. Then in January, Brooke announced she was pregnant. Black and white photo. Ethan kneeling beside her, his hand on her stomach. Our greatest adventure yet. I closed the app. That night, Mom asked if I had seen it. Yes. How are you? I don't know. That's allowed. I stood washing dishes. I wanted kids. Mom went quiet. We always said next year. She turned off the faucet. What hurts, I said, is that he looks like he walked straight out of our marriage and into the life we planned. Mom looked at me. You only know what the picture looks like. 6 months later, Brooke gave birth to a girl. Lily. Healthy. 7 pounds 3 ounces. There were almost no photographs. That was unusual for Brooke. She had documented the nursery, maternity clothes, shower, hospital bag, bassinet. Then Lily arrived. Silence. 3 weeks later, Ethan called me at 9:18 on a Tuesday night. We had not spoken in 8 months. I almost ignored it. Instead, hello, Ava. His voice sounded wrong. The baby is healthy. Okay. I don't know why I said that. Probably because you sound like something is wrong. I was silent. Then, she doesn't look like either of us. I sat up. She's 3 weeks old. I'm serious. So am I. Her nose curved slightly. I felt my body go cold. Not because I thought of Ethan, because I thought of Ray Harlan standing beside his son outside the tire shop. And her eyes, Ethan continued, they're not Brooke's. I remembered Bethany. Same eyes. Different face. Did the doctor say anything is wrong? No. Then what is the problem? She looks like a stranger. My voice changed. She is your daughter. I know. Do you? Ava. No, I'm asking. I exhaled. I had a paternity test. Why? I didn't answer. The test says she's mine. Then she's yours. I know what it says. What do you want from me? Silence. I don't know. That was the first time I had ever heard Ethan Cole admit those words. Brooke thinks something happened at the hospital. The DNA test says Lily is yours. I know. So what mistake could the hospital have made? I don't know. Maybe she looks like family. Whose? There it was. The question neither of them could answer without becoming someone they had spent years refusing to acknowledge. Ask your wife. Do you know something? Yes. His breathing changed. What? I know Lily didn't do anything wrong. Ava. I know she deserves parents who look at her like she belongs. You're avoiding the question. Yes. Why? Because I'm not going to help you inspect a baby the way you inspected my scar. That is not what I'm doing. Then prove it. How? Pick her up. Silence. Hold your daughter. Ava. And tell her she's beautiful before she's old enough to understand you hesitated. I ended the call. I cried afterward. Not for Ethan. For Lily. For Bethany. For Caleb. For anyone who learned to hate themselves because someone else looked at them first with disappointment. 3 months later, Brooke walked into Bennett Hardware. No line and dress. No television makeup. Jeans. Gray sweater. Hair tied back. She looked exhausted. Human. Can we talk? You picked a hardware store. I knew where you'd be. We went into the back office. She shut the door. So you know. Don't. I waited. She swallowed. Bethany. Yes. Her face changed slightly. I didn't steal anyone's identity. I know. I changed my first name. Okay. I had surgeries. Okay. She frowned. You don't care about your nose. No, I genuinely don't. That answer seemed to disturb her more than accusation would have. Then why did Jenna contact you? She recognized you. And you told Ethan. No. Brooke stared. I know something. I know something about himself. Her eyes narrowed. What does that mean? That's his truth to tell you. She sat down. For the first time, she looked small. The baby looks like me. I waited. Not me now. Her eyes filled. Before. Bethany. She nodded. When I look at Lily, I see that girl. Is that so terrible? You didn't know me. No. People laughed at me. I'm sorry. I walked into every room knowing immediately who was prettier than me. I knew where I ranked. That sounds exhausting. It was. Then don't teach Lily to rank herself. Brooke stared at me. She didn't inherit your humiliation, I said. She inherited your eyes. Brooke looked away. After a long silence, she said, Ethan looks at her strangely too. I know. Her eyes snapped back. He called you. Yes. When? After the paternity test. Her face hardened. I did that without telling me. I said nothing. I thinks I cheated. Did you? No. Then stop carrying his suspicion. She stood. What is he hiding? Ask him. Please. No. Why are you protecting him? I'm not. I looked directly at her. I am refusing to make myself responsible for another marriage he doesn't know how to be honest in. She sat back down. Her hands were trembling. Finally, I said, his name wasn't always Ethan. Brooke went still. What? How was Caleb Harlan? Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I added, his parents are not people he barely knows. He grew up with them in Kentucky. His father owns a tire shop. Brooke started laughing. It wasn't amusement. It was shock. Caleb. Yes. She put both hands over her face. 2 weeks ago, he asked if there was anything in my family history I wasn't telling him. I waited. I asked him the same thing. And he walked away. Brooke lowered her hands. We're unbelievable. I could have agreed. Instead, you're scared. So is he. That doesn't excuse what either of you are doing to Lily. She flinched. That child is not evidence against either one of you. Brooke's eyes filled again. She looks like the girl I spent my whole life trying not to be. Then maybe it's time you stop punishing that girl. A tear slid down her cheek. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Brooke whispered, I knew Ethan was married. I looked at her. He told me the marriage was emotionally over. Convenient. Yes, I knew you were recovering. That one hurt. I knew enough. I said nothing. I told myself you were holding him back. Convenient again. Yes. And part of me liked that he thought I was perfect. There it was. My mud, everything I did to become Brooke feel worth it. I touched my neck. And I threatened that. Yes. Because I survived something where people could see it. Brooke looked ashamed. Yes. I leaned back. That's yours to live with. She nodded. Before she left, she asked, why didn't you expose me? Because looking different at 20 isn't a moral failure. She stared. Then what is? Treating another person like their imperfections make them less human. She looked at the floor, then left. 2 months later, an invitation arrived at Bennett Hardware. Whitman Meadow was celebrating its 25th anniversary. My family had supplied the venue for years, so Bennett Hardware was invited as a longtime vendor. The event theme was printed across the front, Roots and Legacy. Below it, celebrating where we came from, what we built, and what we leave behind. I laughed when I saw it. Dad looked over. What? I handed him the invitation. You going? No. Then don't. I left it on my desk. A week later, Carol posted a preview photo of Ethan and Brooke standing beside an anniversary banner. Her caption read, Strong families are built by people who are proud of where they come from. So proud of Ethan and Brooke for giving Lily such a beautiful legacy. I stared at it. Proud of where they come from. Ethan wouldn't tell his wife where he came from. Brooke could barely look at her own daughter because Lily resembled where she came from. And Carol had once written, Ethan finally looks like himself again. Something in me snapped into focus. I called Jenna. I have an idea. That sentence sounds dangerous. It isn't illegal. Not reassuring, I explained. Then I waited 3 days before doing anything. Because Dad had taught me that anger makes people very certain. And certainty is not always wisdom. I asked myself what I actually wanted. Did I want Ethan embarrassed? Yes. Did I want Brooke embarrassed? Partly. Did I want Lily harmed? Never. That became the boundary. No baby photographs. No medical information. No paternity test. No private parenting post. Nothing about Lily. Only the adults. I took the old photograph of Caleb Harlan at 21 and the old dorm photograph of Bethany Whitman at 20. I brought them to a photo restoration shop in Grandview. Don't beautify them, I said. Just clean the damage. Then I asked a local woodworker to build a simple double frame from reclaimed Ohio barn wood. 1 photograph on each side. Under them a small brass plate. 3 words. Roots don't disappear. Dad saw it before I sent it. He stared for a long time. What do you think? Honestly, yes. I think you're angry. I am. I think they deserve to face the truth. Yes. And I think public humiliation has a way of hitting people you weren't aiming at. I thought of Lily. She's not mentioned. I know. I touched the edge of the frame. Just make sure tomorrow you can live with what tonight you sends. I almost canceled it. Then I remembered Ethan saying, Brooke walks into a room and nobody wonders what happened to her. I remembered, you never really fit. I remembered Brooke saying, I need someone who can stand beside him without making every room about what she's been through. So I sent it. And this time I went to the dinner. Not for revenge theater. Bennett Hardware had a table. My parents wanted to attend. Dad knew exactly what was going to happen. Mom didn't until we were already in the car. She stared at me. You did what? It's just 2 photographs. Dad kept driving. Mom turned to him. You knew. I was consulted. You encouraged her. No, you failed to stop her. That is different. Mom looked at both of us. I married into idiots. The dinner was held in Whitman Meadows South Barn. About 180 guests. Vendors, relatives, former wedding clients, employees, loom tables, string lights, a stage near the dance floor. Brooke wore dark green. Ethan wore charcoal. They looked beautiful together. Of course they did. That was never the question. I saw Lily only once sleeping in Ray Harlan's arms near the back. That stopped me. I hadn't known Ethan's parents would be there. Ray looked older than I remembered from our wedding. Darlene stood beside him with one hand on Lily's blanket. I turned to Dad. Did you know? No. For the first time, I considered finding the event manager and stopping the gift presentation. Then Dad quietly said, You can still leave. I looked toward Ethan. I was laughing with Carol. Brooke was greeting guests. Ray was bouncing his granddaughter gently in his arms. I should have left. Maybe. Instead, I said, Not yet. At 8:10, the event director began opening several ceremonial gifts from longtime vendors. A handmade sign, an engraved serving board, a box of archived photographs, then our frame. The EMC read the card, for a celebration of roots. He removed the paper. The room did not react immediately. That was the strange part. People needed time. They saw 2 old photographs. A young man. A young woman. Nothing obvious. Then Brooke's aunt, seated near the stage, stood. Bethany, her voice carried. Brooke froze. Every head turned toward her. Ethan looked from Brooke to the young woman in the frame. Then Brooke looked at the young man. Her face changed. Not because she recognized Caleb, because she recognized pieces of Lily. The nose. The brows. The same features she had spent months questioning. She turned toward Ethan. What is that? Ethan went pale. The EMC tried to speak. Nobody listened. Then Ray Harlan stepped forward. Ethan saw him. Dad, don't. Brooke looked at Ray, then back at Ethan. Your name was Caleb. Ethan's jaw tightened. Brooke, not here. Your name was Caleb. He looked at the photograph of Bethany, then at her. Your name was Bethany. A murmur moved through the room. Brooke laughed once. My family knew my name. Ethan's face hardened. Did they know everything else? Her expression changed. Do you? Carol hurried toward them. Not here, both of you. Ray stopped beside the stage. Why not here? His voice was quiet. But the room fell silent anyway. Apparently the whole night is about roots. Ethan looked furious. Dad. Ray looked at his son. We didn't lose a son because you changed your name. Ethan stopped. We lost a son because you decided loving us made you look small. Darlene began crying. Ethan looked down. Brooke stared at him. Then she said the sentence nobody in that room expected. You divorced a woman over one scar while hiding an entire person. It landed like a plate hitting tile. Ethan looked at me. For the first time that night, he realized I was there. Our eyes met. I did not smile. Brooke followed his gaze, saw me, then looked back at the frame. Ethan said quietly, You lied too. Brooke's voice rose. I changed my face because I hated who I was. And you never told me. No. Then don't stand there judging me. I'm judging you because you looked at our daughter like she was evidence I betrayed you. The room erupted in whispers. Ethan stepped closer. Keep Lily out of this. Brooke laughed bitterly. You brought her into it when you tested her without telling me. I closed my eyes. That was the one thing I had promised myself would not become public. But it did not come from me. It came from them. Ray stepped between them. Stop. They both did. He looked first at Ethan, then Brooke. That baby is not evidence in whatever war you two are having with yourselves. Silence. She didn't ask for your old noses or your old eyes or whatever else you're scared somebody might see. Brooke covered her mouth. Ray continued. She is your daughter. His voice broke slightly. You want to be ashamed of being Caleb Fine. He turned toward Brooke. You want to be ashamed of being Bethany Fine. Then he looked towards the back where Darlene held Lily. But do not teach that little girl to be ashamed of being Lily. Nobody spoke. Not Carol. Not Ethan. Not Brooke. Not me. And suddenly I understood something I had missed when I sent the frame. This wasn't revenge anymore. Not really. The truth had become bigger than my anger. Dad leaned toward me. Ready. I nodded. We left before dessert. Ethan called me 11 times that night. I answered the 12th. Ava. His voice sounded nothing like the man who had left me at the anniversary table. Was that you? Yes. Silence. You humiliated us. Yes. Why? I could have given him a speech. Instead, because I was angry. I wasn't expecting that. I spent a year being treated like one scar made me defective by two people who were terrified of their own old photographs. That doesn't justify it. No. Silence. It explains it. It doesn't justify every part. His breathing slowed. Do you regret it? Parts. Which? The part where I forgot public humiliation never stays aimed exactly where you point it. Neither of us spoke. Then I said, but I didn't create Caleb. No. I didn't create Bethany. No. And I did not make you look at your daughter like she betrayed you by resembling your family. His voice hardened. That's not what happened. It is. Another silence. Then his voice broke. I held her tonight. I closed my eyes. Good. I mean, really held her. I waited. She fell asleep on me. His breathing hitched. I kept looking at her nose. I almost became angry again. Then he said, "It looks like my dad's." Everything in me went still. He has the same curve. His voice was barely above a whisper. I never noticed. I sat down. And her brows looked like my mom's. There it was. For the first time since I had known Ethan, he was describing a face without ranking it. Not attractive. Not polished. Not appropriate. Just belonging. I'm sorry, he said. For what? All of it. No. What? Someday be specific. I was quiet. Not for me. I looked at my reflection in the dark kitchen window. For your father, your mother, Brooke, Lily, yourself, and you. I touched my scar. I already know what you did to me. Silence. Then, I'm sorry I made you feel like surviving something made you less beautiful. My eyes filled. That's closer. We ended the call. I did not forgive Ethan that night. Forgiveness is not a vending machine where someone inserts the correct apology and gets absolution. But I stopped asking one question. Why wasn't I enough? I had been enough. Ethan simply had been measuring with a ruler built out of shame. A few months later, Brooke came to the hardware store with Lily. The baby was 6 months old. Round cheeks, dark eyes, a slight curve to her nose. That was all. Not some perfect reconstruction of two old photographs. Just enough family resemblance that once you knew where to look, you could see generations quietly returning. Brooke wore jeans and no makeup. Lily was chewing on the corner of a paint sample. Probably lead-free, I said. Brooke laughed, very reassuring. Then she handed Lily to me. I hesitated. You sure? Yes. I took her. Lily immediately grabbed my blouse near the collar. Her fingers brushed my scar. I laughed. Of course. Brooke saw. Her expression softened. I'm sorry. You already said that. Not properly. I waited. I knew Ethan was married. I know. I knew enough to know I should have stayed away. Yes. I liked that he thought I was perfect. I nodded. And I liked that he compared us because I was always the one being compared growing up. There it was. The part underneath. I thought winning would make the old comparisons disappear. Did it? She looked at Lily. No. Lily grabbed Brooke's finger. Brooke smiled. I used to look at her and see Bethany. And now, my daughter. That was enough. I did not need a redemption speech. I did not need Brooke ruined. She had finally looked at the person she had spent years running from and stopped treating her like an enemy. That mattered more. The following spring, Dad announced he was retiring. Nobody believed him. I'm serious. You came in on Christmas morning to reorganize drill bits, Mason said. I was bored. That is not retirement behavior. Dad slid a set of keys across his desk toward me. The brass tag read, Owner. I stared. Dad, you've been running half the place for years. Mom smiled. Mason looked offended. What do I get? Dad handed him a sandwich. You were 15 minutes late. I was 12. I timed you. Then Dad looked at me. You know why I trust you? I shook my head. You know when something is worth fixing. My eyes burned. And you finally learned when to stop. That hurt in exactly the right way. I took the keys. We started free Saturday repair workshops that summer. People brought lamps, chair legs, drawers, window screens, old tables, broken cabinet doors. Things that carried memories. Things that were not valuable enough to restore financially, but too valuable to throw away emotionally. 3 years after Ethan left me, he brought Lily to one of those workshops. She was almost 3. She ran into Bennett Hardware like she owned it. Ethan followed. Jeans, work jacket, no polished sales uniform. I looked older, but also less rehearsed. Dad said you have birdhouse kits. Ha lies. Frequently. Lily returned holding 3 paint cards. Purple, yellow, bright green. I want these. All 3, Ethan asked. Yes, that's a lot. She frowned. I crouched beside her. I think it's perfect. The word hung there. Perfect. For half a second, Ethan and I both remembered another version of that word. Then Lily announced, Grandpa says perfect is boring. I laughed. Ethan covered his face. That sounds like my father. Smart man. Annoying man. She ran toward the workshop table. Ethan stayed beside me. My mom showed me an old picture recently of you, my grandfather. He smiled. Lily has his eyebrows. That's nice. I thought so too. 3 years earlier, Ethan would have called those brows too heavy. Now they belonged to someone he loved. I looked at my neck. The scar was still visible. Barely. I understand that night differently now. I waited. I was ashamed of everything about me that showed where I came from. He swallowed. And you had something visible that you weren't ashamed of. I was ashamed for a while. Because of me. Yes. I looked down. I think that bothered me even more. You survived something and eventually accepted the proof. I spent half my life trying to remove mine. There it was. Not an excuse, an explanation. You hurt me, I said. I know. For a long time. I know. I don't need you to hate yourself. He looked surprised. I just needed you to understand that you did it. He nodded. I do. Then we're okay. Friends. No, he laughed. Fair, but okay. Lily shouted from across the store. Dad, Grandpa Ray says I can use glitter. Ethan closed his eyes. My father is destroying my life. I smiled. Family legacy. A few minutes later, Lily put a streak of green paint across Ethan's sleeve. He looked down at it. 3 years earlier, he would have wiped it away immediately. Instead, he laughed. And somehow that tiny green mark told me everything I needed to know. Later, after the workshop ended, I swept sawdust from the floor. Sunlight hit the front windows. For 1 second, I caught my reflection. My scar was visible. I noticed it, then forgot about it. That was the victory. Not becoming so strong that the scar turned into a motivational speech every morning. Not needing to love every painful thing that happened to me. Just reaching the point where I stopped organizing my life around hiding it. For a long time, I thought revenge would heal me. It didn't. Revenge lasted one dinner. The truth lasted longer. Healing came from quieter things. My own house, my father's keys, Sunday meals, repair workshops, boundaries, apologies I did not have to accept immediately. Learning that compassion does not require reunion. Learning that forgiveness does not require access. Learning that someone else's inability to value you is information about them, not a measurement of you. Ethan once told me that after something is damaged, it never looks the same. I was right. I never looked at myself the same after him. Thank God. Being betrayed did not make my loyalty foolish. Being replaced did not make me replaceable. And a scar did not make me broken. Children inherit more than noses and eyebrows. They inherit the way adults look at noses and eyebrows. They inherit which relatives are spoken about proudly and which are erased. They inherit whether imperfections are treated as shame or history, whether scars mean damage or survival, whether ordinary is another word for failure. That is legacy. Not a last name, not money, not a business. What you hand the next person emotionally. Ethan thought my scar was proof that I had been damaged. In the end, it became proof that I had healed. And I no longer needed anyone else to agree. So tell me this. If you were in my position, would you have sent those old photographs to the Roots and Legacy dinner? Or would you have walked away and let Ethan and Brooke discover the truth on their own? And if the person you loved treated a scar from a life-saving surgery like something shameful, could you ever forgive them? I'm curious which side you'd take.